This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Are you one of those single-tier people? I understood who this guy was, and I knew that I was the right guy. Not quite my tempo. It's all good.
The story of Whiplash is a story of personal experience on the part of its director and writer, Damien Chazelle. He grew up in Princeton, New Jersey, and was a jazz drummer for the Princeton High School Band, working under a harsh instructor who was constantly critical. "You're rushing, you're dragging, not my tempo," were words Chazelle said he heard most often throughout all of high school, sometimes making him so angry that he once slammed his fist through his snare drum. Chazelle would graduate high school and head on to Harvard. He initially planned to continue with music, but the experience had left him burned out, and he decided to explore a new artistic path: film, particularly screenwriting.
I came to movies through a love of movies, so the movie buff in me informs the movies that I want to pillage from. The whole idea of originality in art, I think, is really sort of overrated. I think it's to me, the greatest art is, and actually jazz is a great example of this. It's taking pre-existing art and adding your spin to it.
While he was in college, he would come up with the idea for a film called La La Land, but realized that it was too big of a project to do as a college thesis film, and went for something smaller but similar in concept. Working together with his college friend Justin Hurwitz, he put together a jazz-themed film called Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench and become a screenwriter, writing for films like The Last Exorcism Part 2. This wasn't quite his passion though, as he admitted, "I was a writer for hire. I wrote to pay the bills." In the back of his mind, he still had a dream of someday getting to make his musical La La Land. But he faced pushback for the concept being called, as he put it, brazenly uncommercial, lacking a fan base and popular songs to draw in audiences. There were a lot of people saying we were trying to make a really expensive museum piece. He was encouraged to rework key story elements and replace the jazz music with rock, but he resisted, feeling he was being told to strip out everything that made his idea unique. Every one of the contours that felt special and distinctive were the things we were urged to change. Rather than follow through on the suggestions, he decided to pause the project. Down on his luck, Chazelle decided to turn back the clock to his childhood and write about his harsh high school teacher.
So part of the intent with Whiplash was, okay, I'm gonna write something small and focused and lean and mean and really sort of simple.
His aim was to show a darker side of music, one of anxiety, and having all of this life experience to draw on, the draft for this film was finished in a matter of weeks.
First I wrote Whiplash and then I stuck it in a drawer for a while.
The instructor character of Terrence Fletcher was essentially an intensified version of his real instructor.
It was sort of what I wanted it to be, but it was so, I think because I wasn't used to writing something that personal, it had almost taken me by surprise just how autobiographical parts of the script were.
If you're writing something, you start to feel like you're airing dirty laundry, and it's like, oh God, I don't think I want anyone to see this side of myself. It's probably a sign that it's worth doing.
With further references taken from what Chazelle called tyrannical, authoritarian, and dictatorial band leaders throughout jazz history.
I think I got a little bit of cold feet and I put it in a drawer for a little bit and just, and I took my time tinkering with it, but I think it was also because I was trying to delay when I would actually have to show it to my agent or Hollywood.
But despite the more modest ambitions with this new film, Chazelle still struggled to attract interest in the project. And without a budget to work with, the film was stalled. But then came producer Jason Reitman, who convinced Chazelle to shoot part of Whiplash as a short film, 15 pages of the 100-page script, containing a single scene. Neiman's first rehearsal in Fletcher's band. For Fletcher, Reitman recruited J.K. Simmons to play the part.
When I first met Damien, Jason Reitman sent me the script for the short and the feature film of this thing called Whiplash by this kid nobody had ever heard of. I read this script and it's up there with the most brilliant things I've ever read.
The short film captured the wild tone the film was going for perfectly.
When we were making the short film, I was concerned that this kid was in over his head as a director. Obviously, he was a brilliant writer. The self-confidence that he had by the time we got to the set with Miles and me was remarkable. People should watch that short film. It's really great, and it was made for no money.
But this smaller version worked like a charm, winning a Sundance Jury Award that quickly gave Chazelle the recognition needed to finance the project.
Grand Jury Prize for U.S. Dramatic Competition goes to a film of uncommon skill that showcases two compelling characters and pulses to a dazzling and irresistible beat. The winner is Whiplash, directed by Damien and Chazelle.
And financing finally came through, with production company Bold Films offering them $3.3 million to make the full production, and Chazelle got to work. J.K. Simmons, of course, would reprise his role from the short film and join on for the theatrical production. But the actor for Neiman, Johnny Simmons, was replaced by Miles Teller. Teller was actually intended for the lead role from the very start, with Chazelle religiously watching The Rabbit Hole, a film Teller starred in while writing the script.
Yeah, it's sorry. No, it's not done yet. But when it is done, I will let you read it.
Miles I'd seen in his first movie, Rabbit Hole, and it came out around the same time that I was writing the first draft of the script, actually. And so I remember watching it and kind of immediately thinking I have to find some way to work with him. And certainly he seemed to pertain to the role I was writing in the script, the role of Andrew.
But Chazelle wasn't able to get him for the initial short film because of his schedule filming Divergent. Teller accepted the role the second time around, saying, "I loved the intensity of the script." There was one problem though: Teller's drumming experience. Teller knew how to drum, having been self-taught from an early age. Jazz drumming was a whole different beast and a whole different technique that he had to learn quickly. With his drumming being the focal point of the narrative, they couldn't afford to fake it, so the crew arranged crash course lessons for him, and Chazelle himself brought down his personal kit to help Teller practice at home. And just like Chazelle introduced Teller to a new world of drumming through jazz, our sponsor Squarespace is also introducing us to a new way of designing a website with its new design intelligence. And it's a lot easier than learning how to play jazz. The cutting-edge AI technology helps you to create a website that fits your preferred style and brand, but without you having to do all the heavy lifting. With dynamic dashboards, website copy, product descriptions, and a whole lot more, this helps you to easily build a professional, great-looking website to drive clients or customers to. And with Squarespace Payments, you can manage all of your payments in one place with methods like Klarna, ACH Direct Debit, Apple Pay, and more. You can even collect invoice payments from your clients through Squarespace as well, keeping everything in one location. So be sure to try out the awesome new design intelligence system now at squarespace.com. And when you're ready to launch, head to squarespace.com/FrameVoyager to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using the code FrameVoyager. Whiplash is a tale of extremes, mirroring an unbridled passion for music with fanaticism and abuse, asking the question of how far it is worth to go in the pursuit of excellence, and what damage this pursuit could amount to. And it turns out that the production of Whiplash was almost just as extreme as the movie. For many people on the set, the movie was a first. Chazelle, for the first time, wrote and directed a feature. The crew on set was largely composed of newcomers, and even the editors were green. For Simmons, this would be the first movie he won an award for, so even for such an experienced actor as Simmons, Whiplash was something novel.
It was one of those things that I read and just, I could 100% see myself as Fletcher. In every sentence, every frame of the movie, I understood who this guy was, what he wanted, what he needed, and I knew that I was the right guy.
What did make anything easier was the immense time pressure everyone was under.
I know the one day that we did like 140 setups, which is unbelievable. I mean, Fantastic Four, Insurgent, you're doing like 10, 12 setups a day. And so on that movie, we did like 140 one day.
With only 19 days to film, they would attempt to squeeze as much time each day into the filming process as possible in order to get it done in time. Filming for 14 hours a day.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
With little time to film and little room for error, and of course no possibility for reshoots, principal filming would begin in September 2013 in Los Angeles.
And take care of Margaret.
Show me your rudiments.
It was important to me, right away. The way movies begin is so crucial to me. It's that moment where you really have the audience totally spellbound. You haven't lost them yet. The lights in the theater have just gone down. And I think a lot of movies almost kind of waste their opening few seconds.
Introducing Fletcher with a slow creep towards the light and a reveal from the shadows, he is portrayed as an ominous presence.
Did I ask you to start playing again?
And his interaction with Andrew sets the tone for the rest of the movie.
He's seductive and yet scary all at once. At least that's what we were going for.
This also is where the biggest difference to the short film is felt in relation to lighting. While the short film relied on natural lighting, establishing a more realistic look you would expect to see in your own day-to-day, the feature is a different breed, with colors being heavily tinted and stylized.
And this was a lot of fun to kind of light with my DP Sharon mirror, to sort of allow JK to truly come from darkness into the light.
This film, of course, used high contrast, low-key lighting to achieve this effect. To put it simply, high-key lighting shows everything. Low-key lighting, in a sense, is meant to guide the viewer's eyes. As Ozark cinematographer Eric Kuritz puts it, I can tell stories better with low-key lighting because it's all about control. You're guiding the viewer into a point of view more, as opposed to a broad open light. A lot of these shots, especially the close-up of Fletcher's face, give the viewer an almost claustrophobic feel, and adds to the intensity of certain scenes. But it's also a signal to the abuse that Andrew is facing from the imposing figure Fletcher represents, and this is represented in the way that they filmed Fletcher, making him tower above Andrew throughout the film. Chazelle gave instructions early on to J.K. Simmons on how to play this character, saying, I want you to take it past what you think the normal limit would be. I don't want to see a human being on screen anymore. I want to see a monster, a gargoyle, an animal. Fletcher's terrifying on-screen presence isn't enough for a film that is entrenched in musical performance. The actors needed to have some kind of familiarity with the music in order to excel in this feature. Even J.K. Simmons, who is directing his band, what he is signing has to make at least a little bit of sense, or appear like it does. Luckily, and also to the surprise of the newcomer director, Simmons had prior musical experience.
And one of the first things he says is, I want to take the onus off of you as far as the technical aspects of this character, because I want you as the actor, okay? Looked at him, I'm sure, a little bit oddly, and I said, dude, I went to music school. I have a degree in music. I thought I was going to be a composer and conductor.
For a film about jazz, the pressure really had to be on to make sure they got the most critical component of this film visualized correctly. Of course, I'm talking about the drumming. Teller, as we mentioned previously, had received some instructions on how to play the drums like a jazz musician, even changing up the way he would hold drumsticks to be more like a jazz musician.
Yeah, just holding the stick, traditionally was such a weird feeling. And Damien and I have these beautiful, iPhone videos of my first few rehearsals, and I was just like, I can't do it. I was like, it feels just, does this look good? Because I feel just so stupid, moving around it, and slowly but surely, kind of got to a place where I felt really good.
After intensive training, he would end up playing about 40% of the drumming scenes in the film, with the rest being filled in by professional drummer Kyle Crane, who would play his double.
Life imitating art. It was just all a very authentic experience. And except for being terrified of JK because he's such a softie.
One of the most shocking moments of the film has to be the car crash Andrew gets into after he forgot his music before a concert and runs from the scene of the accident to get back to play for the concert in one of the most tense moments of the film, clearly injured and likely suffering from a concussion and other injuries. In a bizarre coincidence, director Chazelle also got into a serious car accident himself in the final week of production, being hospitalized with a potential concussion. Unlike Miles Teller's character, though, he was able to return to the set the following day and successfully wrap up the shoot in time. The interesting thing about Whiplash, which simultaneously must have been bone-chilling for the director, was the fact that reshoots weren't possible. Anything that was captured on set was all the team had to work with. In the end, Whiplash went through a fascinating editing phase, which completed the movie in a less is more approach, finalizing scenes by essentially cutting most of them out, whether they be a small conversation or even an entire sequence of scenes which distracted away from what the movie was about.
We actually, we shot most of a day in Fletcher's apartment, stuff with just me home alone, And there were several hints about, what his life might have been. Damien, in his infinite wisdom, decided not to use any of that in the movie, despite the fact that we spent a lot of time shooting it.
One could, of course, lament that filming a scene that ultimately doesn't make the final cut is a waste. However, Chazelle doesn't see it the same way.
We had whole scenes between Miles and Jeyccie early in the movie where Jeyccie invites him into his office, and there was like a 5-minute scene of them talking in Jeycie's office before even the first studio band rehearsal. Again, it's like now I'm shocked we ever even shot that, but I think it actually helped the actors. I think it helps it gives them added material, added subtext, added baggage that they can then apply to their characters that we never see.
In the end, this film would go on to become a sleeper hit, grossing over $7 million in the first few months, and as of this year, collecting over $50 million on a production budget of $3.3 million. And while the music for Whiplash was excellent, there was another film in 2014 that will likely be remembered as one of the best movie scores of all time. We are, of course, talking about Interstellar. And if you want to hear the story of the production of Interstellar, you can check out that video right here.